So what is an atheist to do? Well, according to their worldview for life, there's nothing atheists should do about it. There's the thing, the shoulds and coulds, or the oughts.
Yeah.
What ought I must do? What should I do? Well,
from a naturalistic, nihilistic point of view, there are no oughts or shoulds, right? Yeah.
In fact, nihilism wouldn't dictate how we ought to behave at all. If you can keep yourself from asking too many questions and ignore nihilism implication, then you're fine.
Yeah, you can breathe a sigh of relief.
Right. You need not feel bothered by it, or you might, whatever. And I think there's all good things can be summed up in Simpson's quote, and the quote is meh. It doesn't even elicit that much of a response. It's what should I be doing? Meh. There's no answer in that. Whatever you want, but at the same time, you don't even have to do whatever you want. Hume points out it's true. So fatal an event is very little to be dreaded. Nature is always too strong for principles, and through a skeptic though a skeptic may throw himself and others into momentary amazement and confusion by profound reasoning, the first and most trivial event in life will put to flight all his doubts and scruples. And when he's awake from his dream, he will be fit to join in the laugh against himself and confess that all his objections were mere amusements, can have no other tendency than to show the whimsical conditions of mankind who must act and reason and believe.
Yeah, so he's suggesting here that they treat this in the same way that philosophers respond to skepticism about the external world. Right? There's no good arguments that say we're not a brain in a vat, right? And so,
or there are other minds.
That sort of thing.
Yep, you're right. That I can't prove that there are other minds. Oh well.
Yeah.
And so that nihilism is true will usually continue to feel that life has meaning enough to carry on. Introspection by itself cannot overcome natural selection, as Rosenberg would say. So the idea that evolution will save us, that we looked at last chapter, it doesn't seem like once you subscribe to nihilism, you have a Heaven's Gate cult type exit from this world of philosophy students that are following the nihilistic professor. It always seems like there's enough there to catch them from falling into this kind of most basic of questions that we've come to see that nihilism should ask that logically follows might possibly occur. Sartre would say our will to live is unreasonably resolved. People in the worst conditions imaginable will struggle obsessively to survive. And we see that too, statistically speaking. It's right now, I should say, in the Western world, it is suicide is predominantly by white, affluent males. That's who are most apt to kill themselves. Yet society says that white affluent males are those who have the most to live for. Yeah. Why don't we see a mass, suicide rate of lower incomes, the poor, people of minority, people who are facing persecution? Why don't we see suicides a mass rate in during slavery? How come, and that's through the history of the world. That's not, in Roman times, there wasn't slaves just, offing themselves left and right because of their predicament. You still had a desire, a will to live. And so for the nihilist, all you can say is it's natural selection, it's evolution, it's ingrained in you. But at the same time, as we looked at in a couple past chapters, is you can always override your programming of the evolution bot inside of you of reproduce. Well, I don't want to.
That's right.
Okay.
Or live morally because it promotes the species. Well, I don't. That's the whole issue.
Right.
People oftentimes don't live morally, right? And so they've overridden. We might suggest. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, good old Rosenberg here says, take 2 of whatever neuropharmacology prescribes. And he goes through a whole list of different drugs that you can take. So essentially, it's a chemical imbalance because that's all we are. We're just a bag of chemicals. And so all you need to get through life is just enough time on, your prescription Zoloft or Paxil or whatever type of drug,
right.
Heroin, cocaine, meth, whatever it is that gets you right to all of a sudden you find meaning in life.
Right. So the point here he's making is he says that even naturalists who are convinced by reason that nihilism is true usually continue to feel that life has meaning enough to carry on.
Right.
But what if they don't feel that? Well, then get your feelings from drugs.
Yeah.
Right? And that'll help you to carry on. He says after 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks, then you're good to go.
Right. It's definitely a chemical imbalance because, you are a bag of chemicals that have evolved to this point and your ancestors didn't kill themselves. So, you need to survive in order to perpetuate the species. And so what's wrong with you is a mutation inside of you. And that's a bad mutation, not like the good mutations of being scared of scary movies that result from being scared of the tiger in the grass, that your ancestors somehow had a gene for that and it carried through in order for you to be scared of scary movies. So drugs is the answer. So drugs and suicide. Right. So again, we're a happy bunch on this part.
Yeah.